Hello, this is the Unit 5 test recording for U.S. History. This is the modified version of the test. In this test, you'll find 22 multiple choice questions and 2 short answers. Please, as always, make sure that you do not exit the test and try to re-enter it later. You must do the test in one sitting. Your short answers are given to you ahead of time, so you should be prepared with the answer to type in there. If you do end up exiting the test and trying to go back in later, you will create a test error. As you go through your test, make sure you save your answers as you go and then click submit for grading. This button must be pressed in order for you to send the test to your teacher. Without clicking this after saving along the way, it will not be sent properly. Make sure that you save your answers on a piece of paper as well in case your internet or power goes out. All right, while we read the test questions and answer options, remember that you can pause the recording, rewind rather, or fast forward as well. What did a sense of optimism and their religious beliefs encourage many Americans to do during the early 19th century? Accept the flaws in society, start missionary work overseas, or work in social reform movements? Number 2, which leader was not part of the abolitionist movement? Frederick Douglass, William Lloyd Garrison, or Robert Owen? Number 3, what was Horace Mann's goal as a reformer in the 19th century? To establish a system of religious schools so that the Christian message would be consistent, to establish a system of public schools that he felt were necessary in a democracy, or the last option, to create a system of private schools that would be affordable for most citizens. Question number 4, which educator wanted to reform prisons and provide for the mentally ill? Was that Harriet Beecher Stowe, Dorothea Dix, or Harriet Tubman? Number 5, what was the goal of the temperance movement? To improve people's spirits, to reduce or eliminate alcohol consumption, or to help people during difficult financial times? Number 6, which was expected of women in the early 19th century? Obeying their husbands, teaching their daughters reading and math, or the last option, helping their husbands make economically sound decisions? Number 7, what is the speaker in this quote advocating? It was we the people, not we the white male citizens, nor yet we the male citizens, but we the whole people who formed the Union. Was this speaker talking about voting for all blacks, women's rights, or the abolition of slavery? What was the purpose of the Seneca Falls Declaration of Sentiments? To state the case for women's rights, to explain to New Yorkers why women should get the vote, or the last option, to declare the emotional issues behind women's rights? Number 9, why were some women opposed to the idea of women's rights? They felt voting was something only white men should do. They believed that men were the superior sex, or the last option, all of the above. In number 10, you can use the image to help you determine the answer for this multiple choice question. Which statement best explains the concept of manifest destiny? Was it the idea that it was God's plan for the nation to expand across the continent from Atlantic to Pacific? Was it the belief that while Americans of European lineage or ancestry were better than other races? Or the last option, the trust that political solutions were usually possible? Number 11, how did mountain men and fur traders help open up the Pacific Northwest to settlement? They established missionaries along the major rivers of the region. They blazed trails through the Rockies and other difficult terrain. Or they formed commercial ventures that escorted settlers across the mountains. Number 12, the Santa Fe Trail ran from the Missouri River to the Rio Grande. What was it primarily used for? To trade with the Mexicans and Native Americans in that region? To help establish railroads in the Southwest? To bring thousands of settlers to the Southwest? Number 13, what was the experience of the Mormons as they traveled from the Midwest through the South Pass and into the Salt Lake Basin? The journey was surprisingly easy. They had a difficult journey through barren lands, or they discovered a new passage that improved travel. Number 14, what did President James Polk hope to gain as a result of provoking a war with Mexico? Control the Rio Grande, additional territory including California and New Mexico, or the support from the Native Americans in the Southwest. Number 15, what action did President Polk take that resulted in the war between the United States and Mexico? He refused to return Mexican land that had been turned over by Santa Anna. He tricked General Santa Anna into bringing troops across the U.S. border. Or the last option, he sent General Zachary Taylor to claim an area of disputed land for the United States. Number 16, which was not part of the Treaty Guadalupe Hidalgo that ended the Mexican-American War in 1848. The United States received New Mexico. Mexico received $15 million. Or the last option, the Nueces River became the border between Mexico and Texas. Number 17, which group describes the results of the California Gold Rush of 1848 to 49? Was it Group A, food was scarce, disease was widespread, the population became diverse, and levis were invented? Or Group B, most miners found gold, California collected new taxes, Spanish missions gained donations, and wranglers were invented? Group A or B. Number 18, using the map, what does the red line identify? Is that the Santa Fe Trail, the Colorado River, or the Oregon Trail? Number 19, which letters identify territories that were ceded to the United States as part of the settlement of the Mexican War? To answer this question, you have to understand what the word ceded means. You cannot just guess at this word. You're going to have to make sure that you understand how that impacts the question. Would it be area D and E, B and C, or A and G? Number 20, what role did Stephen Austin play in the settlement of Texas by American colonists? He convinced American colonists in Texas to declare their independence from Mexico. He received a large land grant and brought in 300 American families to settle in the region. Or he helped the Mexican government win their independence from Spain. Number 21, what actions by the Mexican government increased tensions between it and American colonists living in Texas? Was it abolishing slavery in Mexico and restricting immigration from the United States? Second option, allowing religious freedom and conscription of American colonists into the Mexican army. The third option, declaring war on the United States and arresting Stephen Austin. Number 22, and your last multiple choice question, why were most Northerners opposed to the annexation of Texas? In this question, you have to understand what the word annexation would mean. They did not want another slaveholding state admitted to the Union. They believed that Texas would draw their labor force away from the North, or they did not believe the United States should expand beyond its current borders. Number 23 and 24 are short answers that you should be preparing before you enter the test. These short answer questions are actually given to you in every unit test review, and we start them, or at least review them, in our live session unit test reviews. This one gives the big idea for Unit 5, listed in black here, and then in red it tells you the page numbers that you can focus on, as well as the chapters in the book. Remember, in Unit 5, we did not go over Chapter 15. We have removed that. So you're focusing only on 14 and 16. The first question here says, select one of the essay questions to answer. It first gives you, for the first option, a quote, "All I ask of our brethren is that they will take their feet from off our necks and permit us to stand upright on that ground which God designed us to occupy." These are the words of Sarah Grimke, who was an abolitionist and women's rights advocate. The question is, how do these words describe the goals of the abolition movement or the women's rights movement in the 19th century? Remember, the 19th century equals the 1800s. Include specific details about the reform movement's origins, the goals, obstacles, achievements, and its leaders. You must connect your information to the quote above. Remember, we actually filled out a chart in class talking about the goals, obstacles, achievements, and the leaders of the women's rights movement. So you can go back to your whiteboards from that class to use that to help you. Men, this second quote here comes into the second option for your first question, your first short answer question. You could do this one instead of the women's rights movement question. It says, men are here nearly crazed with the riches forced suddenly into their pockets, explained one gold hunter. The 49ers were men who rushed to California in 1848 to 49 in search of gold. Were most of the 49ers successful in their search for riches? Why or why not? Support your answer with details about the gold rush. So remember, you're not only answering if they were successful or not, but you're explaining why. It's usually good to give about two examples. Don't forget to include the page numbers where you found your information in the book or the lesson slides. You're not to use any external resources outside of the course for these questions. Number 24, the short answer talks about initiative. In this unit, we have seen many examples of individuals showing initiative. Remember, initiative means taking responsible action on your own without prompting from others. It involves having the ability to begin tasks confidently and attempting to better yourself by looking for challenges. The question asks you to give an example of initiative during this time period within Unit 5. So using chapters 14 and 16. Explain who was showing initiative and which event or situation he or she demonstrated this character trait. This part is worth 5 points. If you don't want to take an example from the course unit, from Unit 5, you can choose to describe a time when you have shown initiative. If you do not have any personal examples, explain an example of initiative from your community. Your example can come from politics, education, business, or your local community. That brings us to the end of the Unit 5 test. Again, make sure that you're clicking Save as you go through the test and then click Submit for grading.